Okay, so hello everyone. My name is Loh Eng Tom. Matric number is 2085, 2084. Sorry. So for the company background, the case is involving a wooden plank manufacturing company in Jambi, which is Pokosana Kedah, and employing predominantly Bangladesh and Nepali migrant workers. The factory operate in Malaysia timber product sector, which is supply both domestic and international market. For the industrial relation issues, the first one is the wage violations and exploitations. The workers are reported that being paid significantly less than promised in their contract. So potential violation of the Section 18, 19, and 24 in EA 1955 regarding to the wages payment. Okay, so for the second industrial relation issues is mass strike and workers' organization. The scale of the strike, which is 800 workers, makes the significant industrial relation event. The highlight that the challenge migrant workers face in excessive carbon mechanisms. So for the more about the details about the reporting is from our platform businesshumanrights.org /en latest new Malaysia 800 migrants and migrants workers at plain factories right or fresh which diff include comments. Okay, for the time of this reporting details, which is 13 March in 2025.
Good day, doctor. My name is Raavanyaa Pathmanathan and my metric number is 3001159. Today I will be presenting a real and concerning case related to labor rights violation that took place at a factory in Kedah. This case involves around 800 migrant workers and highlights two critical issues, which is wage theft and forced labor conditions. First and foremost, I would like to explain about the major issue faced by the migrant workers at Plank Company in Kedah, which is wage theft and non-payment of salaries. Around 800 workers from the country, including Bangladesh, Nepal, Vietnam, Indonesia, and Myanmar, reported that their wages has not been paid for at least 3 consecutive months, even though the employer had promised to pay them. The salaries were only released after the workers went on a strike. This clearly goes against Malaysian labor law, which states all workers must be paid at least the minimum wages, and the wages must be paid on time and regularly. Unfortunately, the company failed to follow this rule and leaving workers unpaid for months despite their continued labor. This issue is extremely serious because it puts the workers in a difficult situation. Most of the migrant workers live paycheck to paycheck, relying on their monthly income to buy food, pay rent, and cover medical expenses. When they don't get to pay it, they can't afford basic needs. On top of that, many of them need to send money uh, back to their home to support their families. Without income, their loved ones back in their home countries also suffer. In many cases, these workers paid large amount to recruitment agency or took out loans just to get the job in Malaysia. When wages are withheld, they cannot repay their debts, which pushes them deeper into poverty. This also causes mental stress, depression, and also anxiety. Workers felt trapped, helpless, and afraid. What makes this issue worse is the employer only acted after the workers protested, showing a lack care and responsibility. It highlights how vulnerable migrant workers are and how easily their rights can be ignored. Moving on to the second issue, which is involves harsh and exploitative workers' condition that shows signs of forced labor. These workers complain about being made to work very long hours, often without enough rest, and not receiving any proper overtime pay. Their freedom was limited, and they had very little control over their working hours and conditions. On top of that, they were forced to live in a poor, overcrowded accommodation provided by the employer. These working living conditions are not just unfair, they are dangerous too. These signs may match with known indicators of forced labor, which include excessive work hours, restriction of movement, delay wages, and unhealthy living conditions. This kind of exploitation has been reported in other parts of Malaysia as well, which showing that this is not an isolated case, but a larger problem in industry that rely heavily on migrant labor. This issue is serious because it involves the violation of basic human rights. Workers deserve to work in a safe, fair, and respectful environment regardless of their nationality. When companies force employees to work long hours without rest and fair pay, it affected their physical and mental health. It also showed complete lack of respect for their dignity and well-being. This condition often kept the workers in a cycles of dependence and fear. They cannot complain or leave because they are afraid of losing their job or being deported. In a bigger picture, such exploitation damage Malaysia's reputation and raises concern about how well-being country protect workers, especially the foreign ones. It is important for companies to treat workers equally and fairly, and for the government to strictly enforce labor's law to prevent forced labor and protect the rights of all employees. That's all from me. Thank you.
Hi, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I am Ixora Jazreel binti Nazreen and my metric number is 300477. And today I will be presenting the company level implications of a labor incident involving migrant workers. This incident caused serious internal and external consequences for the company, which I will explain in 5 main points. So the first one is the issue of trust and morale. This incident started due to miscommunication between workers and supervisors, which shows weakness in miscommunication and lack of transparency. This kind of breakdown can make employees lose trust in the company, lower morale, and even lead to labor unrest or low productivity. In the long term, it might cause problems with retaining workers and damage the company's reputation. Next is reputational risk. Because the strike gained public and media attention, the company faced negative publicity. This could affect its brand image and relationships with clients, especially buyers that care about ethical practices. As a result, the company might lose business opportunities or struggle to hire skilled workers. Third, the incident brought in the Labor Department, which started an investigation and pushed the company to pay outstanding wages. This shows how companies that don't follow labor laws can face regulatory pressure and legal consequences. It's a reminder that regular compliance and cooperation with authorities are very important. Fourth, wage theft. Workers reported not receiving the full wages that they were promised, which is not only a contract violation but also against Malaysian labor law. This can lead to legal penalties and force the company to settle unpaid wages. To prevent this, companies should do regular audits and follow wage regulations strictly. Lastly, workers reported harsh working conditions, which is a common issue in factories with migrant labor. These poor conditions can trigger strikes, more negative publicity, and pressure from labor rights groups. So the company may need to invest in improving working conditions to prevent future problems.
Alright, next, I will explore 6 key implications at the national level. So firstly, this case shows a clear breakdown in employer-employee communication. The workers were frustrated due to unpaid wages, but no effective communication system was in place to manage their concerns. So there was miscommunication between supervisors and production workers, worsened by the language barriers. So for the implication, at the national level, this incident highlights the urgent need for the structural communication systems in industrial settings. For example, companies should adopt bilingual briefings, introduce mediation units, and use digital wage tracking tools to avoid misunderstandings. Secondly, the case reflects weak enforcement of existing labour laws. Malaysia already has the Employment Act 1955 and the minimum wage order in place. But even with these laws, workers went unpaid for 3 months. So for the implication, this raises concerns about the Labour Department's oversight capacity. To fix this, the government must implement stricter enforcement mechanisms such as real-time wage monitoring systems or automated alerts for non-payment, especially in sectors that heavily employ the migrant workers. So thirdly, the riot signals rising tensions and an increase in collective action among migrant workers. Normally, migrant workers avoid protests due to fear of deportation or losing their jobs, but in this case, their dissatisfaction escalated into violence. So for the implication, this marks a shift in the industrial climate. If these tensions are ignored, Malaysia may face more frequent strikes or riots. It is now necessary to expand worker representation, improve communication channels, and possibly revive unionization frameworks for vulnerable labor groups. Next, the widespread sharing of videos showing the factory unrest and wage theft has damaged Malaysia's international image. This is especially concerning since Malaysia relies on both foreign direct investment and migrant labor. So for the implication, to maintain global credibility, Malaysia must tighten labor compliance, adopt and enforce ILO standards, and demonstrate visible accountability. This means that not just investigating incidents, but also punishing violators and improving transparency. Fifth, this case undermines the government's long-standing goal of maintaining industrial peace and harmony. It shows that when grievances go unaddressed, unrest becomes inevitable, hurting productivity and national morale. For the implication, this calls for a policy shift from reactive to preventive measures. The government should invest in early warning systems to detect labor unrest, increase labor inspections, and improve worker welfare policies to maintain workplace harmony. Alright, so lastly, this incident shines a light on the extreme vulnerability of migrant workers. So they were unpaid, lacked support, and endured harsh working conditions. Many of them also didn't understand their legal rights or how to seek help. So for the implication, at the national level, this signals the need to strengthen migrant worker protections. This includes better recruitment oversight, access to legal aid, and requirements for employers to submit monthly wage reports to the Labour Department.
By metric number 300364, I will discuss about implication to industry level. First is reputational damage to the industry. When major labor right violations occur, they are often exposed by global media. Local labor abuse trigger responses from international buyers, lead to suspension of trade certification. As a result, this harm Malaysia industry reputation, reduce global market access, and discourage foreign investors from engaging with affected sector. Second is risk of trade sanction and import restriction. Industry with documented cases of labor abuse face a higher risk of trade action, including import ban of or restriction from countries with stringent ethical sourcing law. This may block import of goods produced under suspected forced labor conditions. Other countries may issue blacklists or mandatory due diligence requirements. Third is strict pressure for industry. The incident can prompt the Malaysian government to enforce existing labor law more rigorously or introduce new regulation to prevent the issue. This might include more frequent inspection and harsh penalty for them. Fourth is challenges in migrant worker recruitment. News of exploitation spread rapidly through migrant worker networks. This leads to difficult to attract and retain migrant workers who might option for employment in other countries. Next is destruction of trust. Employees expect fair treatment, timely wages, and safe working conditions. When employers fail to pay on time, it directly violates the basic agreement between them. That leads to distrust and disengagement. Last is rise of collective industrial action by migrants. The largest number of workers face the same mistreatment. They contribute and gathering to involve in collective bargaining.
Okay, coming to the conclusion, we are talking about the treatment for the migrant workers. The plank factories highlight ongoing systematic issues in Malaysian treatment of the migrant workers. Particularly, we got three. The first one is rig protection against wage thief and contract relation. The second one is integrate mechanism for migrant workers to address governance. So the third one is the reach to the Malaysian international reputation as a manufacturing hub. For the key or recommendation is the first one is we need to strengthen enforcement of wage payment law. The second one, you also need to create the protected channel for migrant workers for the complainers. Okay, for them a channel for them to complain. The third one is we need to enhance oversight of labor contract for the migrant workers. The last but not least, we need also the develop industry-wide standard for migrant workers treatment. These cases demonstrate the urgent needs for perform a reform to protect migrant workers' right while maintaining Malaysians' economic competitiveness in manufacturing sector.